Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to week 4, day 2. Last, second last day of the course. Just a small reminder to all of you, the lectures are being recorded and maybe put on the public website, our YouTube website or organizational website. So please be aware of it. Let's quickly, before we start the lecture, two things. If you could all open the PMBOK, I believe everybody has a copy of PMBOK now. Go to page 25. You would find table 1-4. Hello, Marisa. Hey, Marisa, can you hear us?
Yep.
Yeah, we are looking at PMBOK, page 25, table 1-4. Okay. That's the table I want you guys to memorize. It's going to take you guys 15-20 minutes, but you guys need to memorize this table to know which process falls into which process group, which knowledge area has which process groups, and so on and so forth. This is absolutely critical. You should know this by heart. And one of the first things that you guys are going to do when you are going to take the exam, they gave you 15-20 minutes to start before you start the exam, and piece of paper and pencil. You're going to write this, make this table and keep it in front of you while doing the exam. That's what you're going to do. And this is absolutely key that you should know. Okay, so that's number one. Then so that's the one. Okay, first of all, any question? Have you guys seen this before?
No, first time for me.
Okay, so this is the key. This is what we talk about when you talk about plan, scope, and if you look at the first one, that's a project integration management, develop project charter. It's an initiating process group. So 5 process group: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, control, and closing process group. And you will notice that in the initiating process group, there are only 2 things we do. We develop a project charter and we identify stakeholders, right? And similarly, if you look at the closing process groups, we only have closed project or phase, right? Which is part of the project integration management. So the point I'm trying to make is it's easy to remember this. Just read through this, understand the numbering on the on each item represents the PMBOK chapter. So 4 means chapter 4.1, 4.2. You don't have to remember it for the exam, but it's easy for you to remember. Okay. Mohammed Noor, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay. Mohammed Noor, can you hear me, buddy?
Yes. Yes.
So we are reviewing PMBOK page number 25, please. Open PMBOK page number 25, table 1-4.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's the one I was telling the team. That's the table you need to remember by heart. Okay. The second one. Go to page 47, please. Page 47, table 2-1. Okay. Influence of organizational structure on project. There's something you should need to be aware of it. You don't need to remember the table, but this will help you. Remember or learn the influence and the power of project manager in different type of organization. Lakesh, we are reviewing PMBOK chapter PMBOK. So if you could open PMBOK page 47, table 2-1.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm just giving you guys some tips on what to remember. So that's the key. So table 1-4 on page 25, you have to remember that by heart. And one of the things I said to everyone on the day of the exam, when you go in, the first thing you do is you write this, on a piece of paper that they give you so that you know. Secondly, table 2-1, page 47. Please understand how the power and influence of the project manager works in different types of organizations. Okay, that's the key. That's the second table that for you guys to know and remember. Okay, then then page 53, figure 3-1. That's project manager's sphere of influence. We covered that on the day one as well, but that's project manager's sphere of influence. Project team, sponsors, stakeholders, supply. So if you start from the internal teams, the closest to the project manager, which is project team, other project managers, portfolio project managers, and resource managers, and then goes into the higher hierarchical sponsor, governing bodies, steering committees, PMOs, and then goes external. Could be external. So remember that. Okay. Okay. That's the. Okay.
So it was what was the first one? I've got 2-1, 3-1.
1-4, page 25.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So, like it's 1-4, page 25. You have to learn it by heart. You need to learn it by heart. You must know this by heart. The next one is page 57, figure 3-2, PMI talent triangle. Now, this is just for your information. There might be a question, may not be, but you should know how PMI is now structuring the project management, right? So even when you go and claim the PDUs, it needs to fall under one of these categories. So project technical, leadership, or strategic, and there's a definition around it, what falls into which one. So please.
Sorry, page number, please, again.
Sorry, come again?
Page number, please, again.
57, page 57. PMI talent triangle. Okay. Okay, so. Okay. And Lakesh, just going back to your question about the difference between team charter and project charter. So the team charter focuses on team. It's all about team rules, how a team will make the decision, how the team will operate, the communication, the roles and responsibility. And how they will achieve the objective. It's not about project charter is more about project purpose, how the project objective will be measured, what are high level requirements, maybe overall project risks, summary milestones, if you can call, some information on financial budgets and key stakeholders list. So that's the key difference. I couldn't find anything in where I could pinpoint that there would be any similarities between the two. So even I looked at some of the questions that PMI has presented in the exam, and it's pretty straightforward to distinguish between the two when in terms of the questions as well. So they don't throw you, it's not the test of whether you understand the wording or not. It's about what the environment, whether you understand the concept or not. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay. Table 4-1, page 89. Okay. Table 4-1, page 89. So there is a list that talks about project management plans and project documents. Please understand the difference between the two. There could be a bit of a confusion at times. I went through it. So PMI has put scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baselines, all the baselines as part of the project management plan now, which were initially there, but they have made that as part of the baseline plan. I went through this all over again. I know someone asked me the question, I probably have misguided, so apologies for that. So the baselines are now part of the project management plan. So if you have a question, identify which document, which is a document and what is a project management plan. So scope baseline would be a project management plan. Okay. Okay. I think that's the key ones that I want to highlight at the moment, and we'll talk about it more as we go along. But these are the key things. How we do this. Okay. Okay, that's then. I want to take you guys to a second. I'm not used to using a book. I'm used to using PDF. I probably should do that in the PDF.
Fahim, I have maybe just a very general question. I was reading through this PM book and I came across rolling wave planning.
Rolling, which is progressive elaboration.
Right. So there will be questions on that type of thing, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, could be.
Maybe it'll be like, maybe not so many questions. I'm guessing like 1 or 2 at the most, or.
Listen, I'm not sure if I can, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you need to understand rolling wave planning, progressive elaboration. That's really key. That's really key.
Okay.
You need to understand how this works, right? Okay. Sorry, Matt, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, the last important page that I want you guys to basically remember by heart is page 267, table 7-1. 267, table 7-1, earned value calculation summary table. You need to remember these formulas with me and understand if it's positive or negative, over and under one, so ahead or behind schedule. People do get confused. If you look at towards the bottom of the page, EAC, estimated completion, there are four formulas for estimated completion. Okay, please know which formula to use when. So if you look at the first one is, if the CPI is expected to be the same for the remainder of the project, EAC can be calculated using EAC is equal to BAC divided CPI. Then second category is, if future work will be accomplished at the planned rate, use this formula. So there are 4 ways to calculate EAC depending on the situation you are facing. So be careful. You will have a situation in the exam where they will give you one of those situations and you're expected to calculate EAC based on. If you use the incorrect formula, that's basically it's going to be incorrect answer. Okay, so this is the second most critical table for you for the exam. You need to learn it by heart, and believe me, it's very easy because it's very simple formulas. You just need to know how to calculate this. So similarly, TCPIP, which is total complete percentage index, that also has 2 variables, right? 2 ways of calculation, which is the last item on the page. Please understand the difference between these 2 as well. Okay. ETC is the same, just 2, but it's on. But still, so just please remember the differences and understand when you need to use which formula, which condition. Okay. And when you go to the portal, when you will do the exam, there will be a lot of exam based on this. So it will be, it will be easy for you to remember this once you learn this table and then do the practice test. Okay.
Fahim,
Yep.
best way to do the trial test is to try to memorize the whole PMBOK and go for the test, or is it better to be like while you're doing the questions, checking the PMBOK?
So listen, I won't ask you to memorize the PMBOK. I haven't even memorized the PMBOK even today after 20 years. It's unrealistic expectation. But memorize the key concepts, right? These few pages. That's what I'm saying, right? Out of 600 pages, I'm telling you, I'll probably come up with 5 or 6, 7, maximum 10 pages. Okay, guys, focus on this because that's what it is, right? Project management is not about you memorizing things. It's about knowing the environment, how you're going to manage it. This is what I say. Once you read the PMBOK, it will be easy for you to apply these concepts. Trust me, once you've gone through this course now, so when you start reading the PMBOK, a lot of things will start making sense to you. All right? So don't worry. But
You would
don't
recommend
try to
that.
memorize. Sorry, don't try to memorize the book.
Got it. So for the trial test, you would suggest to use like the book by your side, for example, and trying to check like the best answers as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Fahim.
Not at all. But you have to read the book to understand. Okay, I'll give you an example. So let's talk about. Let's go to page. You guys are on page 276, right? Just go to page 272. I want to explain you something. Just go to page 272. So we'll say a project quality management overview. Okay, is it okay? Is everybody with me? Okay. Now go to, at the same time, open page 25. Page 25. Everybody with me? Keep both pages, right? So I'm just holding it like this so I can look at both pages. So page 25 and page 272. You guys are all on mute, so I don't know whether you guys are with me, not with me.
Sorry, Fahim.
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So if you look at on page 25, middle of the page talked about number 8, project quality management. And you can see the project quality management has no process under initiation and closing. It has 3 processes only, which are in the planning, in the executing, and in the control. Now, if I say, it's a very simple for you to remember. If I say, guys, quality management has 3 processes, 1 in planning, 1 in executing, 1 in control, right? The first thing, and if I ask you which process is in when, if it's the first one is plan quality management, that means it will be under planning. It can't be in the closing, right? It's talking about plan. There are a lot of giveaways in the name. So plan quality management will be under planning process. Control quality would be under control and monitoring, and manage is what execution. Does it make sense? A lot of things will be like this, right? If you go back to page 272, under plan quality management, you will have inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Similarly, under 8.2, inputs, tools and techniques, outputs. Input, tool and techniques. What PMI has done is every process has some inputs to it. There are some tools and techniques that you apply during that process to get a certain output. That's how it works. Now, I don't expect you to remember all the inputs, outputs, and tools and techniques but remember the key ones. I'll give you some over a period of time. And a lot of them are repetitive. Data analysis, data gathering. What is it? No, you won't get a question. These are the tools and these are 10 tools and techniques in managed quality. You'll probably have data gathering is used for what. So I'm just giving you guys an example. So just focus from that point of view. If you remember, if you can learn page 25, take a pragmatic view of it, right? In the planning process, planning activities would be there. So if you look at, again, go to page 25, just to give you guys a bit of a hint. Look at schedule, number 6, project schedule management. Plan schedule, activity 6.1, plan schedule. It is definitely under planning. Define activities, we talked about it. So you're defining, when you're defining, you're basically planning the activities, right? So if you look at this, anything related to the schedule, there are 6 activities under schedule management. 5 of them are under planning, and 1 is in control, which says control schedule. Very easy to remember. So anything you see, right? How do you build a schedule? What did we talk about? You come up with a plan, you define the activities, you sequence the activities, you estimate the activity duration, and you develop a schedule. If you go in the sequence, it will be very easy for you guys to focus on it. Okay. Okay, we'll cover this as we go along. I'll tell you more of these. Just focus on it, and we're going to talk about it, how this works. Do we want to quickly cover the exercises that you guys have done yesterday? What did you guys do? Okay. 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 Do we want to discuss? Are you guys okay with that? Do we want to discuss activity 3.1 or not? We know Kate has already done it, so we can ask her to clear. Right? Kate is like, no, I don't want that. Don't ask me. Okay. Questions, guys. Do you have any questions about 3-1? Do we want to talk about it? Do you guys have any concerns? No.
Number 15 for him.
Number 15. Okay. Your project team holds weekly status meetings. Should the notes from last week's meeting be considered a project artifact? What do you think?
Yeah, like yes, I've said yes, but why they have if there? Because as I know that all of the meeting minutes also considered as a project artifact,
Okay.
but why they put if on it?
Okay.
Yes.
So this is just to throwing you in a different direction. So let's say number 1 is this decision is up to the project manager, which is incorrect. Then second one is if significant project issues were discussed. Okay. And then third is even if the meeting resulted in only routine topics. All right. And number 4 is no meeting notes are not artifacts. So 1 and 4 are all definitely wrong. We know that, right?
Yeah.
No, yes, even if the meeting resulted in only routine topics. If you're not getting an update, if just catch up, you don't need to minute that. That's not so if you're not having any, sometimes people get together, the concept of the meeting, it has to be very effective, agenda driven. If you don't have an agenda, it's just a routine topic, there's no update, nothing, you probably don't need to do it. But had it been a situation where you had no other choice, so at the moment it has given you 2 choices with the yes, right? If it had been just 1 choice, even if the meeting, you would have to pick that one. That's when this is just the way, that's how you should approach the question when you're looking at it. It's tricky. It is basically, I'll tell you what is it. What would you do during your project in a practical environment? What would you do? So this is not from PMP. This is from a practical testing your practical skills. What would you do if you are in a project practically and you call up a meeting? You don't discuss anything. Everybody say, oh yeah, all good, nothing. You don't waste time minuting. Oh, everybody said okay and send the minutes out. You just say, okay, thank you very much. We'll catch up with you next week. Does it make sense?
Well,
Kind of. No.
it's gonna be just a small talk then, without any agenda or
Yeah. So you don't want that, right? Time is precious. You don't want to waste time in small talk. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Nice.
Well, thank you. I
No
have
problem.
another one. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Got it. That's the whole idea.
Number 21.
21.
Yeah.
What are some of the reasons for performance variation in a project? Okay.
I thought
So
the new
first of all, what is a performance variation? Let's first think about it. What is a performance variation? When we say performance variation, what are those?
So changes that will affect on time, budget.
Yeah. So we use earned value to measure performance variation, right? So when we start the project, we always have a baseline. We have a scope baseline. We have a schedule baseline. We have cost baseline, and performance variation is variation in our baselines from what we are expecting it to be. Okay. Yes, is everybody with me?
Yep.
Okay. So it says, what are some of the reasons for performance? Okay, if you have a change, would it change your baseline or not? It will change, it will bring a variation in your baselines, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. What if you have a new regulation? Again, it's just another way of saying a change. If you have a new regulation, you need a new requirement, you have to come up with a change, and it will change your baseline. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then if you have missed any requirement, again, remember, you get the variation if there are changes there, right? So they are all different types of changes. So if you have a missed requirement, what happens? You don't go and implement the missed requirements. You go through a change management process. You have to encounter all these things, specific changes. You have to go through a change management process. New regulation, you have to go through a change management process.
Yeah.
Missed requirement, you have to go through a change management process, analyze the impact and variation. So that's it. New changes to the project plan. Yes, no?
Well, I think this one is as well included.
Sorry?
I think this one is as well included.
Okay, this one is all. Who else agrees with that? So,
I think this would not be changing any of the baselines. So that
exactly. A new changes. It will be updating the base. It's not based on just, so let's get the difference. Specification changes, it's going to change your baseline. New changes to the project plan will go, it's not going to change your variation. You need to update the variation baseline and you will have a new variation. It's not an error or a corrective or preventive action. That's the throwback. You guys understand? So if there are specification changes, so you're doing something, you're going through so you've given, so if you look at the first one, you're going through a certain specific specs have been given to you. Let's say you're building a house. Okay, you need to use this quality of concrete. This is that. If there's a change in that, that's going to change your variation, because your performance based on, you have a certain quality criteria based on that specification. That's going to change. If you come up with the new regulation may also change your specific requirement. You're going to go and change your baseline based on your specification, new regulation, right? Similarly, if you have missed a requirement, that's pretty straightforward. So we're talking about performance variation. Remember that the earned value that we use, for what we use for earned value, how it's going to do that. Inaccurate initial estimate will also impact your performance variation. So what the quality. New changes to project plan are basically the new requests that are coming in to add into the functionality or the performance of the project. Does it make sense, guys? A bit tricky, I can understand that, but do you know what is it trying to say? So new changes to the project plan.
So that means these new changes haven't got the approval yet.
No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying, so how should I? So if you have, okay, I think what is performance measured against? Is our quality that we are delivering, right? The quality of the work that we are doing, the quality of the deliverable, quality of the scope, quality of the schedule. That's our quality. That's the quality. Variation is against the quality of the work that we are doing, right? That's performance variation. Performance variation.
Yes.
Right. I'm just focusing on the point, right?
Yeah.
New changes to the plan will probably reset the baseline, but it will change the it will not create a variation. It will reset the quality baseline. So that's the new target that you would have to do. So you're not taking any corrective action or preventive action. You're basically resetting your baselines based on the new request to the project.
Okay.
Right now, I'll give you an example. Sir. I think I talked about the specification, so it's a bit tricky. I understand that. Let's say you have to let's say you're building a house. Let's say you're building a house, right? And you have a house. the rooms are all 3 by 8. Let's say I'm just giving you 3 by 8, right? And regulation comes in that, and that's what your house is being going towards. That's what you're doing it. And then when you start measuring at towards the end of the construction, you notice that you need 3.2 by 8 or something, but your quality, what you were focusing on, 3 by 8. So there's a variation in your estimate. There's an error in inaccurate initial estimate. So that means you got that wrong. So regulation may require you to do a certain level of width and length and so on and so forth, whatever the construction is. But if that's not the case, then you have a variation. You have a variation from your actual baseline plan. Does it make sense? Confusing? Confusing? Okay. I need to find you guys.
Yeah. That's fine. I will need some time. I'm just
No,
thinking.
but let me find something that will help you. Okay, leave it with me. I think I need to give you guys an example that is easy for you guys to remember.
Yes, please. Because I'm thinking when you're building a house and then it has been agreed that you are using like material, like for example, you are using asphalt instead of chip seal, and then you would like to change it into concrete, then the quality will be different.
But that's so if you want to change it, it's going to be a new plan. If you want to change your plan, so from asphalt to concrete, it's a new plan. So you will have a new quality standard set for that. You will have to have a new baseline. But if you have an asphalt of say category A and then you get a category B, that's a variation. Do you understand that? So let's say if you, I'm just saying, let's say you're using asphalt, right? And you have said, using this, I will get a quality X from this construction. That's example. And the quality of the asphalt that is delivered to you is not what you expected it to be, and it is now X minus 1. Your standard, that means there's a variation where it's a variation from your quality standard. In the other case scenario is now you've decided to change your plan altogether. You say, asphalt is not what I'm going to use. I'm going to use concrete. You cannot apply the same standard to concrete as you have applied to asphalt because it's going to be different. So you will reset your quality performance measure for concrete. You understand? There's a difference between change and getting the performance. So we're talking about performance variation. It is bit confusing. I'll try to find. I've taken a note. I'll try to find some more easy example for you guys to explain.
In that case,
Thank
for the asphalt and the concrete one, like I'm guessing when you say quality, you're referring to like for example, for us, it would be the council standards, the standards for the that are set out by the council. And so when you're saying that we're changing from concrete to say from asphalt to concrete, you're changing is it really the quality? You're changing the quality, but you're changing the standards that are set from an outside party. It's not set by you.
Yeah, but when you're changing from asphalt to concrete, you're not changing the standard. You're changing the plan.
Yeah,
you're changing the plan. So I'm just giving you the new changes to the plan. You're changing the plan. You're not changing the standard. You're changing the plan. If you get a lower quality of asphalt or higher quality of asphalt, that's the changing variation in your quality.
Okay.
There's a difference here. When you're changing the whole, like you're changing the product altogether, that's you have to. Concrete may take 4 days to set. Asphalt may take 2 days to set. So your whole thing will be variation. There will be variation in scheduling and cost and resources and so on and so forth. I don't know, by the way, how long the concrete and asphalt takes. I just took an example, so don't quote me for that. It takes 2 days or 4 days. I'm just.
No, okay, thank you.
Okay. No dramas. Any other question? But I'll try to find more examples on it. Performance variation. Any other questions, guys? Okay. Keeping the business in mind. Now, I told you guys yesterday that keeping the business mind. This is the last one. But all is it doing is basically reviewing all the chapters that we have done before. It's basically topics that we have already discussed. There's the topics that we have already covered. So when I'm going to go through it, I'm going to be asking you guys to explain to me rather than me explaining you. So you guys can, so that I know what you guys have learned, and there's something that we need to focus on. Do we have a deal? Everybody's on mute, and I think everybody would like to stay on mute for this. Okay, so the focus would be, sorry, just a second. Okay. Okay, manage compliance requirement. Okay, so why do we do compliance, guys? Number one, why do we do compliance? So who's going to tell me why it is important to have a compliance? We just talked about performance variation. Why do we need a compliance? You remember that?
Make sure that you are delivering what is expected.
What is expected, to make sure you're delivering what is the regulation, make sure you're delivering what's the quality standard set up by external bodies or your organization, and so on and so forth, right? So it also make sure, and this also helps you when you have a vendor, you want to set certain conditions and requirement compliance, right? That's why we do audit. We want to make sure that things are in place, right? Okay. So yeah. So compliance requirement. Most project files aspect of the solution that are subject to regulatory and legal constraints. Right? We talked about it. For any project, whether it's a software, whether it's construction, manufacturing, the compliance requirement must be identified, tracked, and managed throughout the project. This is the key for your exam, right? You must manage, identify, track, and manage. Why? Give me a reason why we want to make sure the compliance requirements should be identified, tracked, and managed. Okay.
Maybe it needs to be identified. Okay, that's probably a bad way to start that. Okay, I'm just gonna turn my mic off.
No, go ahead. Lakesh, don't be. Seriously. I would rather you guys give me incorrect answer now than pick the incorrect answer in exam. So please go for it. Yeah. Go for it. Okay.
We need the compliance for us to achieve project success. But for us to meet the compliance, we need to first know what are the requirements. So we need to identify extensively. And then once we know them, we have to track them, because if we don't track them, there's a very good chance that throughout the project, we can deviate from what we set as the initial expectations. Is that?
So my question is, why compliance is important? Why compliance? Why do we have to comply? Right?
I would probably say that to stick to the initial baselines.
Okay. So let me give you guys a scenario. Okay, Kate, what do you think, Kate? Do you have a view?
Well, projects, they exist in some sort of environment, right? So they should definitely comply to some sort of standards to be accepted by the environment, by the client.
Yeah, I think my question, and this is very important. Okay, let me ask Stephanie, because Stephanie, you are in construction, right? You're in construction area, pharmaceutical construction.
Construction and process manufacturing.
Yeah, manufacturing. Why do you comply? Give me an example of a project that you're doing.
It's a powder plant project, and then it's gonna be really costly if we are not comply. For example, the wastewater, if we council give us a limit, and then if we breach that, it's gonna be a big fine.
Absolutely, that's fine. So the compliance, if you look at the first sentence, say most projects have aspects of solution that are subject to legal or regulatory constraint. If your project, and that's what the compliance is, you have to comply to the regulatory constraint. Why do we have a compliance? Councils, when you build a house, council come up with certain compliance requirement. Your house needs to have this kind of grade cement, this kind of a metal, this kind of whatever you need to use it. The pairing should be that deep, and because if the compliance is not there, that's based on certain standards. If the compliance are not there, then you will have a low quality product, right? That's the key. That's the key. Why it is important. And if you have a low quality product, remember the cost of conformance is less than cost of non-conformance. You remember that, guys? Yes, no? Cost of conformance is less than cost of non-conformance. So you don't want a low quality product. You want to make sure that you build a quality product. And if you are non-compliant, there are heavy legal penalty, financial penalties for missing out on the compliance. Because organized, regulatory bodies and governments, they want to make sure that everybody comply to it, right? And that's why we have certain structure, right? You can't throw the garbage on the street. If somebody catches you, you are fined for it. Why? If everybody starts throwing the garbage on the street, it's going to be dirty, right? So compliance is very important, and it is very key for the projects to be there. How we do it, you put whatever you require as part of the compliance. You can use the risk register. We talked about what the risk register is. Everybody's familiar with risk register. Once we have identified risk, we do the testing and validation. We recommend risk response plan. Yes, guys, give me something. Give me something. I don't want to be talking about it. Give me something. Okay. What is a configuration management system, guys? I'm going to go around the table. Abdullah, you're very quiet today.
Configuration management system. I'm a bit blank at the moment, but I think how the management plans would work.
So what is that?
How the management plans would work?
No. Okay. What do we do? What do we use for configuration management system, guys?
Oh, is this about the project, tracking the project deliverables?
Yeah, but what is it for?
Changes.
And, what do we do? What's the key thing? You remember that? Documents, version, controlling. Want to make sure that all the documents are controlled version.
Oh, yeah.
Configuration management system. Okay. Okay. We want to make sure the main benefit of configuration management system is to manage and control, track and manage version control for your documents as well and product deliverables, right? So if you're doing, testing or documents, if you're doing, initial run of the product, it's a, version 0.1 or 3 or whatever. So yeah, hand it over with the deliverables so customer can continue tracking their configuration management system. Okay. Risk responses. What were some of the risk responses for the threats? Come on, guys, give me. What are the risk responses for the threats? Stephanie, give me one. You're on mute.
Sorry. So mitigate, avoid.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Marisa, what do you think?
Acceptance.
Yeah. Give me one for opportunities as well.
Sharing.
Sharing. Good. Well done. Okay. Miriam.
Avoidance.
Avoidance. Yeah. Good. And give me one for opportunities as well. Enhance or exploit. Yeah, sorry. Enhance or exploit. Okay. Like I said, this whole chapter is nothing but going back to revisioning, going back to the initial whatever topics we have covered, right? Compliance category classification, right? That's fine. Compliance category may be based on, again, I think that's something very important. There are various type of compliance categories based on the industry. So, if you are in the construction industry, there will be environmental. You might have environmental compliance. You may have in any industry. We have work health and safety. That's also there. We also have, there's talk about greenhouse gas social responsibility and so on and so forth. So that's also there. Then you also have, you maybe you're doing something that is impacting a certain way of doing the thing, industry standard process and or procedures that you may have. That is also the case. Quality, you need to comply with the quality standards as well. There are certain quality standards that you need to comply as well. And also, one of the key things, okay, who has worked in a, okay, I think most of you have worked in an organization which has, and most of the organization these days have a very regular way of ensuring that that their team, their employees are aware of the compliance and audit requirements. How do they do that? How do they do that? They run a lot of training, internal trainings, compliance training, corrupt practices training, so that you are aware of it. Have you guys gone through any of those?
Is that related also to code of conduct?
Yeah, that's right. Code of conduct. Exactly. Code of conduct trainings. This is how you're going to operate and so on and so forth. So all these policies, procedures, how you're going to deal with customers, how you're going to avoid problems, how would you conflict of interest and all these things. So there are quite a few practices. There are quite a few things that you need to, organizations, these are focusing on. So, and these are all compliance, I'll give you an example without naming the organization. So this is about 2016. I was working in an organization, and that organization was, one of the telcos in Australia, big telcos, and they had a policy. They had a policy that you cannot enter in the building without swiping your card. You have to enter and exit the building using your ID card. So the idea was that security would track everyone, who's coming in and coming out. We had a lot of contractors. Now, in the basement, car park basement, they also had these boom gates, right? One of this guy, he was in a hurry, and you can just jump over the boom. Excuse me. It's a very simple. It's just making sure it's not like a security thing. It was just tracking this one. And this policy was reinforced on a regular basis. So this guy, he jumped over the boom gate in a hurry because he lost his key card in the room. So instead of going back to his room, grab the card, come back, he just says, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It's already 6:30. I think it was late in the evening, 6:30, 7 o'clock." He just jumped over it, sat in the car, and left. Right? He was recorded because cameras are always there. He was asked. He gave an example, and they basically fired him. Within 24 hours, the guy was fired. Very good resource operator. He was part of my project team. So, what happened? And he was crying. He said he made a lot of, he apologized and said, "So we cannot, this is, they would ask employees to provide a written affidavit, courses, when they do the courses, that you will comply to this." It's a very serious offense too, because, anybody could have come or a lot of people would bring their guests without registering them. So they put that in for a reason. So we don't understand these compliance requirements are very key. That's very key. So anyway, I thought I'll explain you why compliance requirements are there. We're talking about the running the business. So we have execution reports. There are different types of reports that include the data, risk, deliverables, overall status, added or audit, any other. Then we also talked about variance analysis. We talked about how we manage the variance, right? Variance related to compliance are critical because of potential impact on usability of the deliverable. What does that mean? Variance related compliance are critical because of potential impact on usability of the deliverable. What does that mean? What it means is that so let's take an example of I think Stephanie mentioned about you build a house by ignoring the compliance requirement. You won't be able to use it. You just won't be. If your construction does not comply, do not comply with the legal requirements, compliance requirement, you can't use that properly at all, no matter how expensive, big, and so on and so forth. Variance should details, identify plans for bringing the project back into compliance. We talked about it. Any proposed changes required to meet compliance requirement. That's pretty much it. Potential threats to compliance. Okay, well, give me some example of what are how the compliance can change. You know, compliance requirements change as well, right? Quite regularly, in fact. How does that go? You know, government may pass new laws, may pass new legislation, right? So the compliance requirement may change. Now, sometimes government passes laws retrospectively, and sometimes they say, oh, you know, it's going to be effective from 1st of June or 1st of January, and so on and so forth. So you probably, you know, it can have a serious impact on the projects who have probably taken into another view. So this is where the performance variation may be impacted. The new regulation has come in, and that is now impacting your actual design quality standards that you have, right? So something to think about it. Okay, are you guys familiar with non-functional requirements? Okay, is everybody familiar with non-functional requirements?
Nope.
Okay, I was just going through. How many of you are in? Are you guys familiar with what is functional requirement? What is a functional requirement? So let's, Carlos, which industry do you work in?
I work for Air New Zealand, Fahim.
Air New Zealand, right?
Yep.
So what is the functional requirement of the Air New Zealand? Just the plane should fly. What is the functional requirement of the plane? That the plane should fly, you know, should be able to
On time, for example, yeah.
Yeah, no, it should be able to carry, you know, 30 or 300 passengers. I'm just giving you an example, right? You know, and the plane should have, you know, enough capacity to carry 300 passengers. It should be, you know, speed of 500 kilometers and so on and so forth. So these are functional requirements, right? Non-functional requirements are that basically, you know, supplement the functional requirements. In fact, there's a very good definition. I think I would. Non-functional requirements are used to help stipulate the level of service warranty of the deliverable, right? In other words, can you count on this product or service to be usable? You know, these are the non-functional requirements. So, you know, what is how reliable this product is, right? So there are 4 categories: availability, capacity, continuity, and security. Okay, so these are very extensively used in software industry as well, just so that you know, if you're building developing an app, they want to see, you know, how much, you know, security, what's the availability, what's the disaster recovery plan for this, and so on. The non-functional requirements complement your functional requirements, right? So in fact, I would like you guys to focus on the definition, which is non-functional requirements are used to help stipulate the level of service warranty of the deliverables. So I don't know if you guys have look at page 254 of your manual, non-functional requirements. Okay.
Is non-functional requirements in some sense sometimes assumed? Like,
No.
for example, in the sense of when you like building constructing a building, and it's supposed to have, you know, maybe a service life of maybe 100 years or so. You don't mention that usually in the.
Oh, you do.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. So there's no such thing as verbal. No, you need to. And at times you may need to be required to monitor and track non-functional requirements as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's not like it's in the like government like you use the government regulations as backing, and then you just assume that if it's in the government regulations, you don't need to include in the project plan.
No, you don't assume these things. You have to document this.
But if you,
when you're doing a planning, you have assumption based on some estimated guesswork or estimated some what do you call some data. You don't just make an assumption based on, I'm hoping the government will allow. No, you based on some data. So government regulation says, you know, the thickness of wall should be 4.69 plus minus 5% variation. And based on that, you make your assumption or whatever you want to do. right? But in project plan, you don't assume things without any data backing, just to be very clear,
Okay.
because it's a very disastrous, right? If you don't take into, if you just assume the compliance requirement and you're not aware of it, it can have a very serious impact on your project.
But in the project plan, it will usually, I'm guessing, it's not going to be reiterated word for word. It might say, for example, would it say refer to
Yep.
regulation?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
That's
Oh
what
yeah, that's right. That's right. But it will. That's what I'm saying. It will have some. It will have some data behind it. So you won't. You don't write the entire compliance requirement in your project plan, because you don't remember if it is available in certain area that you need to refer to. Like I'm talking to you guys, go and read this in PMBOK. I'm not giving you opening a PMBOK and telling you again, reading it again and again, right? But yeah, you're right. So the plan would refer to that particular document that you need to comply to.
Okay.
And that happens pretty common, in fact, just so that you know.
Okay, I'm a bit sorry. Can I ask you a question, please? Okay, I'm a bit confused in functional and non-functional requirements. So, just for the case of let's say capacity, so wouldn't that be a functional requirement? And it is actually a part of non-functional requirement.
Could be. So there you could have a product where capacity would be a functional requirement. There's a possibility. So there's no hard and fast rule that these are the only 4 types of non-functional requirement. Depending on your industry, depending on your product that you're developing, some of those could be functional. So let's take it. We talked about the airline. The capacity of passenger capacity in airline will be a functional requirement. In a network environment, if you're developing a telco network environment, the speed, if a throughput, it may be a functional requirement. You need a certain like 5 GB or 4 GB signal, or so it varies. The point is that anything non-functional requirements are something that are basically complementing your functional requirements, right? You may not have a non-functional requirement also. There could be a case where there is no non-functional requirement. Usually it's hard, sometimes when you're doing something, there's something that's always there that you need to do it. But at times and not always, non-functional requirement could be intangibles as well, may not be tangible as well. Just so again, that's just to reinforce the compliance of the product, reinforce the usability of the product, just so that so let me give you an example. If you use a website that is SSL certificate, this is not a functional requirement, but it's an add-on to it. It's a non-functional requirement. SSL. Are you guys familiar with SSL? Sorry, right? So as it would function very well without the certificates. But if you have a SSL, it is a secure site, so you would be more inclined to use a product with website which is secure rather than insecure. So you're safe accessing that website. Okay. Then we have sign-offs and approvals. Pretty straightforward. You must have sign-off for all the compliance requirements. And now again, we talked about, if you remember, during the procurement, you don't have to wait for the end of the project to release the vendor. If the vendor has delivered what's required, you can close it. So it can procurement sign-off can happen throughout the life cycle of the project as and when required. Similarly with the compliance sign-off as well. If you've done something, if the compliance was applicable to a certain aspect of the project deliverable, you have done that. You don't need to hold wait till the end of the project, right? So, but it can happen at the end of the project as well, depending on how you're approaching it. Okay, what else? Okay, tolerance level enable the project manager to effectively manage certain issues without needing to escalate every issue. Are we okay with that? We talked about tolerance level, everything. You put a tolerance level, or we also call it buffer, in your project planning as well. How much you can, how far you're gonna go there. How much you're gonna, you. Depending on your project plan and dependency, you say, okay, let me put, have you heard about this word buffer? You put a buffer in your plan. That's basically your tolerance, right? let me put 2 days buffer in the plan, because I can tolerate a delay of 2 days without impacting my, end project deliverable. So that's what it is. Okay, some guidelines there for you guys. Okay.
Can function and requirement and feature be used interchangeably in the context of compliance?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So we've been talking a lot about features in some of the previous topics, and here we have used the word requirements.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be, I guess, clear that features and requirements they are somewhat the same, but I'm guessing that we have to be careful where we're using requirements and where we're using the word features.
Yeah.
Is that
So? No, that's fine. Let me throw it back. Throw this back at you, Lakesh. Where do we use the word features?
features you've been using in? I think it was in topic number 4 when we were
Which
talking.
environment? Okay, guys, this is for the team. Where do we use interchange? So number one, Lakesh, yes, feature and requirement can be interchangeable, but it really depends on what methodology or approach we are using. So who can tell me where do we use features? The concept of the feature has come from which methodology?
Oh, waterfall, right? Oh
Come on.
no, agile, isn't it?
Agile.
Yeah.
In waterfall, we have requirements. In agile, we have features.
Okay, so that's a really key, I guess, thing for some of the questions where they'd say, what are the features or something like requirements, then
Yeah.
it can give us a
Now,
good.
you just be careful. Just be careful. Now, it may be a fully waterfall question, maybe interchangeably using requirements and feature. I can't think of an example. But usually the word feature requirements is a waterfall approach, the traditional approach, and feature is an agile thing, right? Features, apex, user stories. That's how we use it. Okay, Rakesh.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Not at all.
That was more along the lines of something Marissa would be quite interested in.
It's all right.
Yep, you're definitely right about that.
Well, what is that, Marisa?
Yes, basically getting a clear differentiation between feature is in agile environment and requirement is in a project waterfall environment. And so we kind of like identify that keywords.
Yeah, and so like I said, PMI is not here to test your knowledge of English. They are testing your knowledge of the environment. So they won't put you in a situation where you have to think about it. Is it an English feature or it's an agile feature? The question will give you a lot of hints, whether it's talking about methodology or it's talking about, no methodology and focusing on something. You will, when you do the exam, you will know that. When you do the practice test, you will know that. Yeah, I would be very surprised if they try to test you on these concepts like this, right? Yeah, it's something to be aware of, to be honest. Okay, we talked about escalation procedures. We escalate when it is beyond our tolerance level, right? Standard, pretty common. We only escalate. We don't escalate if everything is going in control. We start to think about it when we think, oh, hang on a second, it is reaching towards our tolerance level. But as soon as it reaches, and we probably start to highlight, excuse me, we start to think about it, escalating. But if it hasn't really crossed that tolerance level, you probably won't escalate. Okay, quality management plan, we talked about it. Quality management plan is part of which knowledge area, guys? Come on, which knowledge area? Project quality management.
Planning.
Project quality management. Okay. Okay. Audits. Okay, what are audits? Why do we use audits? You remember we did audits? Anyone? Richard, do you want to have a go? No.
To identify gaps and address it.
Yes, gaps in where? Where do we do? Why do we do audits of the project audits? We want to make sure that we are in compliant with our policies and procedures. So, or whatever the requirements are. So audits are done to, and one of the most important thing, audit is conducted by a team external to the project, not to the organization, external to the project. Okay, so remember that. So this is very key, by the way. Project audits are done by the team that is external to the project. Okay, because they come and give you an outside view, right? Okay.
Sorry, I've got a question
Sure.
regarding escalation probably. So when would we see that we would take this matter to the CCB or the change control board, and when we would say that we can resolve this on our own, like the project manager could resolve this on his own?
Okay, so the first thing is, you know how we talked about the tolerance level. The first thing is when you notice the non-compliance, you have to see whether it's within your tolerance level or not. Whatever the tolerance level you have defined or not. If it is not in your tolerance level, you have to escalate it immediately. Like I said, I would also say that in practical world. So let me give you an example of this. Is a very practical example, right? So you have a project schedule which have you delivered your project, let's say by the end of March, right? And you're tracking your schedule and you realize some of the activities will be delayed, and there's a risk that schedule may be delayed. The risk that you identify a risk. So you're going to register that risk in your risk log, risk register. There's a risk and you're going to come up with some response plan. If the response plan says wait for 2 days based on your analysis, wait for 2 days, and by this day, you need to identify, you need to resolve, have a response plan, be ready for the risk, and it would have a risk trigger information we talk about. If your response plan says the trigger happens if the trigger happens after 2nd of March, that's your escalation point. You escalate on 2nd of March, right? Whatever is your condition applies. So the key thing to remember is you need to understand what's your tolerance level for that particular event. That's when you escalate. In fact, that's a good point from exam point of view as well. Know your tolerance level for escalation, right?
Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Talked about it. Sampling. You guys remember the data gathering tools, data analysis tools? Remember root cause analysis, alternative analysis, document analysis? We talked about it. I'm thinking it's all basically taking you back to what you have already done. You guys remember affinity diagrams? We talked about it. Flow charts, histograms, matrix diagram, scatter diagram. Yes, no?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's basically college years, going back to what we did. That's pretty much it. Let's have a quick look at the activity 5-1. 5-1, page 258. Give you a couple of minutes to read it. Okay. Let's do a quick one. So you're managing a project to coordinate a risk assessment of a large energy company with nuclear power plants. Okay. You become aware that the FAA is planning to change the flight path for a major airport located just 2 miles from your nuclear plant. The new flight path would reduce airline noise for local residents, but require more than 50% of air traffic to fly directly over the cooling towers. Outline the risk and potential impact and then consider risk responses. Okay, what do you think? What could be the potential risk? What would the risk? Say what? I don't expect you guys to be nuclear experts, but so you have a situation where 50% of the air traffic would be flying directly over your cooling towers, right? So let's say there's a risk that it will create a problem for you to manage the cooling of the nuclear plant. So give me a risk response strategy that you would consider taking for this situation. What kind of risk response strategy would you take for this? So number one, is this an opportunity or threat?
Threat.
Threat, okay. So, and for threat, we
can avoid it.
Avoid it, mitigate it,
transfer
it, accept it, right? What else? No? Okay, so what approach are you going to take? So what does avoidance mean? What does avoidance mean? Come on, guys, give me something.
You would say like, no, this can't be done. Like
avoidance means that you basically change your project plan or schedule or whatever to avoid the risk altogether, so that you don't come into the path of that risk, right? So that's avoidance. That's one way of doing. Mitigation is that you said, okay, that can happen. You put some plan in place to mitigate the risk and contingency against it. If that happens, how you're going to approach it. Transfer is you give somebody else the responsibility of it to manage the risk. Okay. Yes, no.
So when you transfer, would it be transferred to someone within the project team, or is it?
No, outside,
right? So
no, outside, not within the project team. So now hang on a second.
Like the insurance company.
Sorry, Abdullah.
Like the insurance companies or something.
Yeah,
right?
like insurance company. Risk is not project manager risk, it's the project risk. So when we say project risk, it's everybody's risk, it's the project team risk. So you don't transfer within the team, you pass it on. Transfer means you get somebody else to take care of it, right? In this case, I would say, you could have, let's say if you do risk transfer, you may hire some external party to come and maybe do some cooling effect on the tower once the airplane has flown by. I don't know, I'm just taking a for it. So that's one way of looking at it. Mitigation is you put some plan, to address this by maybe, enhancing the cooling system, putting some dollar against it to enhance the cooling system or lower the 2 hours, just something. So there could be many ways to do it. There's no right or wrong answer. The point was that you guys remember the approach, the response strategy that we have. Okay, the next one is that your company is subject to a broad area of regulatory compliance requirement for all of its operation. What would you do to gather these requirements and ensure they're properly weighted as part of your risk assessment? Okay, how would you gather the compliance requirement? Number one, before we do anything, how do you gather requirements for the project? It's no different than that. What do you do? What techniques do you use, guys? Come on.
Brainstorm, maybe?
You can do brainstorming as well, yeah, with the stakeholders. You go do a requirement analysis, you talk to them, you set up the meeting, you do document analysis, you look at the lessons learned, all these things, right? So whatever you do, it's a requirement analysis, whether it's a compliance requirements or any of it, it's a requirement. So approach and the tools, the techniques are the same, right? You get SMEs to help you with the identifying and explaining, detailing the requirements so that you don't miss anything, right? Okay. You remember one thing, and this is something that if you get a question, as a project manager, we try to avoid reinventing the wheel always. We don't go about reinventing. If something has already done some time back, that's why we use lesson learned. That's why we use document analysis. We go back and look at the documents. We look at going back and look at the lessons learned to see where we are with our environment. Does it make sense? Okay. 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 This is an important topic. I think I asked you to read it, but we're going to talk about it. Evaluate and deliver project benefit and value. Sure. How many of you are familiar with the concept of benefit realization? What is benefit realization? So this is becoming a very big thing now. Benefit realization. So benefit realization is I'm trying to explain word benefit, but basically the benefit, or what do you call it?
So like the value that you can.
The value, right? Thank you very much.
No worries.
The value of your deliverable, and whether whatever that you set about delivering at the start of the project, did you deliver that value to the business? It's very important. So remember, the projects are started as a result of a business need. Did your project deliver the benefit that it was initiated for? That's called benefit realization, right? Now, benefit realization can be, this is important, guys, can be tangible and intangible. Now, there's a whole, in fact, that's something that I do as my specialty, that you do benefit realization in the on project. As a PMO manager, I do benefit realization, do a tracking of that. The idea is that whatever your project you're doing is being delivered, whether it is delivering the benefit to the organization for it was started for. Now, I said benefits can be tangible and intangible. So let's say let's take an example of a product. Let's say I'm just taking you are coming up with a new phone. Let's say new smartphone, right? In competition in the market. So what would you do? You would come up with certain objectives for it. You want to launch a phone and you want to make sure that it is used by, you will have certain goals, objective, right? It should be used by, let's say, 20 million users, in Asia, just giving 20 million users. No, 20 million users in Asia by December 2021, right? After the launch of the project. Let's say you launch the product phone in June. Then you measure against it, you measure every month, how many phones have been sold and so on. So that's measuring your benefit. So you basically, and it's a tangible thing, you can measure it, right? So if you don't reach your target, then you haven't met your target, but maybe you've met 98% target, maybe you've met 91%, because you do a lot of costing and budgeting based on the target you want to achieve. So remember, the projects are there to add some business value. It could be, like I said, tangible and intangible. Now, that's one way of this is tangible. You're looking at the financial benefit. Another example is that you launch a product to build your brand name. You are not expecting any financial incentive, but you're expecting a brand name. A lot of people offer free service. What are they doing? They're offering brand name, building their brand. So that's all. That's it. That's an intangible benefit of your project. You may do a project that will help you build your market share, that will help you build your brand in the market. Okay, so remember, I just thought I'll explain this to you. So there are some, we're going to talk about what is ROI. What is ROI? Who can tell me what is ROI? Abdullah?
Forgot it.
That's all right. Kate, do you want to tell me what is ROI?
Return on investment.
Return on your investment, right? What's your return? So if you're spending, $2 million, and after delivering the product, you're gonna get $500,000 in return, then it's a bad investment, right? NPV, net present value. What is the value of your investment in future? What is the value of your current investment in future, right? So I always take an example of, if you buy a $500,000 house, what it would be the value of that house in 5 years. Okay, IRR, internal rate of return. Okay, I don't remember the definition for that. I'll explain you. Business value. So there are different types of business value. I mentioned, you're looking at, customer value, shareholder, channel partner, employee knowledge. There could be a lot of values you can associate with the project that can bring in. It is beyond the economic values. It is beyond the tangible benefit. You do value analysis, process of examining each of the component of business value, and understanding the cost of each one. Pretty straightforward, right? You want to make sure you have a cost-effective way to improve your business value. And this is where the benefit management plan comes in. So I talked about benefit realization. That's what it is, right? What is, and please remember this, the benefit management plan normally have, what's your target plan? What are you targeting, right? What are you expecting it to be achieved? What is the strategic alignment with your organizational goal? Whatever the project is delivering, is it worthwhile doing it? When will you get it? So I'll give you an example. Let's say if you, how long, in fact, let's do it. When iPhone first came in, whatever, I don't know, 10 years back.
2007.
Sorry?
2007.
2007. Okay. Oh, really? 13 years back. Okay. 14 years back. Did everybody start using iPhone? Did it become a household name standard within 1 year? No, it took some time, right? But now everybody's after iPhone. So it has become, it took them some time to build it. Maybe that was their strategy, to start low and then build it to that level. Now everybody wants it, right? It's the standard. So the time frame for you to benefit realize, you have to be very practical about it. And benefit owner metrics, how you're going to measure that benefit. That's the game. And what are the risks associated with achieving your targeted benefits? And if you have identified the risk, how you're going to go and find a response plan that is effective in minimizing the impact of the risks. Okay. These are the main components of the benefit management plan. There could be more, but these are the key ones that you need to track. Okay. Who can tell me what is sprint review demo? Sprint review. Come on, Mohammed Noor. What is a sprint review demo? It's not there. Carlo. Oh, sorry, Mohammed is back. Mohammed Noor, what is a sprint review demo?
That is the third stage in our agile, when we for each iteration,
so we are demonstrating. Demo is demonstrating our product to our stakeholders to get their buy-in. Yep, makes sense. It is what we expect it to be. Doing a benefit realization kind of a thing. Okay, that's what it is. And this sprint review is okay. Release management. What is the release management, guys? What is release management? Release management, guys.
The process of releasing the final project deliverable.
Yeah. So what are the release management? So you have within the release, you have sprints. Sprints have sprint backlog. Sprint backlogs are dependent on product backlog. So whole idea is you're basically delivering an incremental product at the end of each sprint, and that's what release helps in that as well, right? Okay. Yes, no. Okay. Benefit cost analysis. It's also called cost benefit analysis, a systematic approach to estimating the strength and weakness of alternative used to determine the option which provides the best approach to achieving benefit while preserving savings. In simple way, cost benefit analysis is, if I'm putting in $100, what is the benefit I'm going to get out of that $100? Whether I get $110 or $120, or I'm going to get $2. That's what the cost benefit analysis is. That's simple as that. What is the benefit of the investment that I'm putting? So when we buy a car, buy a house, we look at not only just our benefit is live in the house, but we're also looking at its value appreciating over a period of time. Okay. Cost benefit analysis is one of the key tools that we use to measure the options to do a project, or also compare potential projects. So when we are prioritizing projects, We can look at we can do a cost benefit analysis for each project to come up with an answer whether is it worth doing project A or do, which one will give us more benefit for the minimum cost. That's why we do it, right? Okay. Okay, return on investment, we talked about it, right? Financial metrics of profitability that measures the gain or loss from an investment related to the amount of money invested. Again, simple. How much I'm going to get? What is the return on the investment that I'm putting it, right? It is also called rate of return. Okay, if you have a positive ROI, which is like you have your benefit outweighs your cost, then it is a good investment. If your benefit, if your cost outweighs your benefit, it's a negative investment. Okay. Present value, the current value of future sum of money or stream of cash flow given a specific rate of return. Guys, you need to remember the formula. You must remember this formula, right? And how to calculate it. This is the key. Pretty straightforward formula. These are accounting financial terms. I don't want you to just spend time on trying to, but you do need to remember the formula, right? Net present value, the present value of all cash flows minus the present value of all cash inflows. The outflows minus inflows. Again, remember the formula. Okay. Yeah, you calculate all in inflows, outflows minus inflows. The present value. Okay, again, this is a financial accounting term. We talked about internal rate of return that makes the net present value of all cash flow equals to 0. Financial tool often used in capital budgeting. Okay. Okay, net promoter score. Who's familiar with NPS, net promoter score? That's a really good one, in fact. Who's familiar with NPS? Net promoter score. Okay, Carlo, you're in an industry that would be using net promoter score, and Mohammed Noor, you're in an industry that uses net promoter score very extensively. What is a net promoter score? Kate, what is your industry?
Engineering consultancy.
Engineering, you probably don't use that. I don't know if you guys use it, but
yeah, this is to classify if your customers are considering like detractors, passive, or promoters of your brand.
Yeah. So net promoter score is, basically check whether the customer likes your product or not, whether it likes your company or not, right? Whether they would recommend your product to somebody else, right? And if you have, it's at a high level. So if you normally put a net promoter score between 0 to 10. If you have somewhere between 9 to 10, if you get a score of 9 to 10, that means your customers are very happy with your product and they're happy to basically promote your product. They are called promoters. So they're gonna be talking about your product a lot. You know how we say we're talking about, I think since the start of this lecture, I've given a lot of references of iPhone. I haven't hardly spoken about Samsung. So that means I am more loyal to iPhone, and I have iPhone, by the way. So it's just I'm promoting iPhone. So if they do an NPS survey, they send it to me, they'll probably get a high mark. Then the distractors are 0 to 6, where they look at people who are not happy with your product, right? And they will not be keen to promote your product. And then somewhere in the passive, somewhat satisfied, but yeah, okay, if it's there, do it.
So this net promoter score is calculated. Performed using the survey.
Yeah, usually surveys. There's a lot of there are various things to do, but normally surveys are done. Okay. And by the way, Lakesh, which industry are you in?
Construction. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure about construction. It's extensively used in telco and airline industry.
Right.
That's it.
Is that to random selection, or is that
like show? Yeah, okay. I think they send it to everyone. In fact, all their clients, and depending, they assume they try to get. And there are a lot of agencies. They do companies. They specialize in this now. They help organization get find out their net promoter score. It's a big deal in a lot of our industries, right? Oh, we've got a net promoter score of 9 or 8. Big thing. That means they're very, I don't know semantics to be honest, details about it, how they do it, but
Can this be a metric for the project plan? No.
No. These are basically these are something we're talking about running the business. So once you deliver a project, what project can impact? You don't take that into account a project, but you can initiate a project based on your net promoter score. Let's say if you get a score of 4 and said, oh, we need to do something about it, and you may initiate a project, organization may initiate a project to do something about increasing the net promoter score. That can happen. That happens, in fact.
I'd say this is more related to customer experience as well.
That's right. It is customer experience. Yeah. It is customer experience. That's what it is. How customers say anything. So that's why I'm saying airline industry and telco is pretty much more. They do it on a regular basis. I'm not too familiar about engineering firms or construction firms. Maybe they do it. I'm not familiar with it. Okay. A/B testing. A/B testing is nothing. Basically, it's also called split testing. You basically okay. Who's in Muhammad Noor? In fact, let me give you guys. If you want to buy a new phone plan or new phone, you go on the website and they give you a lot of options with the same phone. This plan and that plan. There's a $50 plan. There's a $70 plan. So, right? Are you guys familiar with that? Right? And that's what it is. A/B testing. You're basically they're showing you different variants of the plan. This is one way of looking at A/B testing. It's not really A/B testing. Basically, giving you 2 different variants of the same thing to see what your result, what the customer focuses on, what the customer response is, and then they focus on one that is making more money to them. That's how it works, right? User marketing. It's a matter for defining user preferences, right? So I gave you a very raw example of plans because it's easy to explain, but that's in actual practice. A/B testing is nothing but reviewing 2 different approaches to capture understand user preference. That's it. One way of doing it, you may have a website with one website with you may present 2 different features of the version of the website to the customer to see which is more user friendly, and customer get much better. You get much better, actual reaction from them. Okay.
Even the phone sometime, Fahim.
Phone. What do you mean by that?
FONT font. Different type of font that you use to, and you get a different number of people that come through. Just a very minor changes sometimes will brought huge because of the clarity, because of the appearance. You talk about the website, clarity, user friendly, and the font playing one of the major role.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mamadou. Then we have simulations. So simulations are basically a mathematical way of running simulations, trying to see what can be. What can be the result? Basically changing some possible inputs and see what are the outputs. These are usually computer generated. Monte Carlo is used as one of the major techniques. You don't need to know how this is done, but it is is something that is used extensively. In construction and manufacturing as well. Simulation, analytical technique, computer model. One thing that is a key important one that I want to talk to you guys, and I asked you guys, decision tree analysis. Okay, I know 7:35. I'm going to spend 5 minutes on it, and then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and we do the exercise. So decision tree analysis is a diagramming method to calculate a decision. So it's like it says, decision tree analysis, right? It is a method to evaluate financial results or financial outcome based on the options that you have, right? That's what decision tree analysis. And there's a technique called expected monetary value that we use to calculate come up to a decision. We look at the options available. So let's say you want to build software in-house. and let's say somebody says you have a possibility of, there's 60% possibility of success in building, and 60% possibility of about of $100,000 spent on if you build the software in-house, versus if you buy it from outside, there's a 80% probability of $100,000 or something. So you do those calculations, and you figure out, okay, which is the least, which gives you the maximum benefit, which is the least cost. Excuse me, and you pick that decision. This is key in areas where cost is the deciding factor in doing a project, right?
Fahim.
Yep.
Do we need to know how to calculate that one as well, or?
Yes, 100%.
Because, for example, in this example here, I really didn't get how do they get to like $200,000 and $50,000, for example, in the vendor A.
Okay.
They're multiplying like 0.6 times $200,000, and the other one is multiplying like 0.4 times minus $50,000. But I didn't get how they get to minus 50,000 and 200,000.
Okay. So how about we take a break? If have a look at it, I want you guys to explain that. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll do this calculation to see whether we all understand it or not. I'll try to explain it to you, and then we'll do a question in where you got in activity as well. Now you will probably be given some data in the exam as well. It won't be just raw data, so you will be given some data in the exam as well, right? We'll showing you something like that, what you have for you to calculate it. Okay, I will explain you, but let's take a break. It's 7:40, 10 minutes break. I'll see you guys back at 7:50. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's all good.
Thank you, guys. Welcome back, guys. Recording is back on. Thank you very much. Okay. So expected monetary value is basically calculating the average outcome of when the future is uncertain. So what that means? So let's say in our example where we want to purchase a boiler for a power plant, and you have 3 vendors who have provided you with the bid. So vendor A bid is 100,000, vendor B bid is 120,000, and vendor C bid is 90,000. Right, that's the bid. So whereas you say cost of decision is the bid that vendor has provided to you. Now, what you do is that's the bid of whatever you're doing purchase of boiler for the power plant. It has nothing to do with your calculation. What you do is you basically go and look at your historical data and come up with these numbers. So you will always be given this data in the exam, because there's a science behind calculating these probability and information in most of the time. So in this case, the project team has gone and looked at the historical data, and they believe based on the similar projects that vendor A has delivered, there's a 60% probability of delivering the work at 200K, right? So what they're quoted, their bid is for 100K, but there's a 60% possibility of them delivering it for 200K based on their historical information. And there's a 40% probability where they basically, around 50K. That's how they count. This is done through historical information, looking at other data, existing data, what is available. So it has no relationship with the cost of decision that you have at the moment, right?
Fahim, I didn't get the negative amount.
Which negative amount?
Minus 15,000.
So there's a 40% chance that they will not be able to deliver it at 50K, cost of 50K. So when you have, there's a possibility when you do calculation, what is the possibility of a vendor delivering a project or somebody delivering a project for you, right? That's something a positive, right? And then there's a risk of what that would be, right? Hang on a second. I'm just gonna. Okay. Okay, so let me put it this way. So how do they do is, let's say you are working on, let me put it in a different way. Let's say you are working, you've asked for a bit. Let's take that example. And you look into the historical data, you look at it, there's 60% chance of this vendor rate to deliver this project at this value. But there's also a 40% chance. So it's risk, imagine it's risk, probable impact. There's also a 40% probability that by engaging this vendor, we may incur a cost of 50,000. We may lose 50,000, right? So when you hire a vendor, if you don't know the future, you always look at what you're going to get, what is the possibility of success and what is the possibility of loss. The negative is saying there's a 40% possibility by engaging this vendor, we may lose, based on historical data, there's a 40% chance of that we will lose 50K on this by hiring this vendor. So this data, you get it from your previous historical. Similarly,
by not delivering, for example.
Yeah, so if they by engaging them, there's a 40% chance that we will incur a loss on whatever their work they're doing. So this is again, so don't confuse it with the cost of the decision here. Don't look at that one because that's the bid that they have given you. It has no relationship with this dollar value at the moment. This has come from your historical data that your accounting team or your project team, other project teams have provided you. But it helps you come up with a decision who to go with based on their historical performance. That's what it is doing. It's basically assessing the risk of engaging a particular vendor and assessing the success rate and the failure rate. What's the possibility of this vendor engaging this? What is the possibility of success of this vendor delivering the work versus the failure? That's all you're doing, right? If you look at the vendor B, the best case scenario is, based on again her historical data, there's a 40% chance of 100K profit, but there's a 60% chance that we will incur a loss of 30K. Similarly, best and worst case scenario for vendor C. Now, if you don't take this, if you ignore all this calculation, okay, just ignore all this calculation. If you have this bid, this is the information that you have got, and this is probably the best way to explain. If you have just this table, okay, and you have to select a vendor, who would you go for?
I would go for C.
Yeah, you would go for C because C is the lowest cost. Yes. How many of you agree, disagree? Okay. What EMV is doing is saying that's incorrect way of doing it because you're going on what's on the paper in front of you. You have to look at the historical data. You have to look at the historical performance of that vendor and see how they have delivered previously for you. And what is the chance of them succeeding and you making money, and what is the chance of them failing and you losing money? That's what you're doing a risk analysis, right?
So is that correct if I say that those numbers here, like in the right side of the table here, they are based on SLAs, for example?
Could be whatever the I would not say SLAs, but whatever the historical data is, organizations use different ways to calculate this information, right? So the point I'm doing, these numbers have no relationship with this at the moment bid. This is just the bid, right? What you're trying to do is based on historical information of that vendor relationship with you. You're trying to assess these three vendors to see, who's the best one to go for. You calculate based on historical that best case scenario when they've delivered, there's a chance of making 200K. So 60% to 200K is $120. And worst case is you losing 50K. 0.4 into 50K is minus 20. You sum them up, and the answer comes to be 100K. Is okay? You basically sum them up. Sorry, I can't write. Are you guys with me? How to calculate this? Are you guys with me? How to calculate this?
Yes.
Yeah. So just consider this. What is the possibility of making profit by using this vendor, and what is the possibility of incurring a loss by using this vendor. Now, similarly, on the historical data, you believe, based on your historical data, there's a 40% chance of success with this vendor, and you'll probably, based on, again, historical data, you'll probably have 100K, you'll make 100K, and there's a 60% chance of losing money. 60% of charging, losing 30K if we engage this vendor, based on, again, historical data and their historical performance. So what is the sum of these two? 40 minus 18 is 22?
22,000.
22,000. So first one is 100K. Second one is 22,000. Let's look at the third one. Again, same concept. So you come up with 70% best case making 80K. So 0.7 into 80 is 56K. 56 minus 6,000 is, you're going to give it 50K. Is that right? The sum, you sum the profit and loss, expected profit and loss. So this would be 50K. Are you guys with me or not?
Yep.
Okay. Now, so this was what, 22? This was 22K, right? Okay. Which one would you go for now? Who you think is going to give you more? Well, who has a better chance of giving you profit, higher profit?
Vendor A.
Vendor A. But you said you're going to go with vendor C. That's what it helps you decide. But it is highly reliant on the historical information of the vendor. You can't do it if you don't know that vendor.
Okay.
You don't know, you can't do this if you're not familiar with the vendor performance, right? Now, some of the organization, I don't know if you're familiar, in practical world, they have the panel of vendors that they ask to bid. Organization keep a panel of vendor based on their performance and so on and so forth. And they pretty much use their mathematical ways to do what do you call it? Computer simulation and calculated already in the spreadsheet. They put in the information there, put in the risk factor, and they come up with the figures. They immediately know how this is, which vendor is to go. But on paper, if you look at it, you would have gone for vendor C because he's got a lowest quote to build a boiler for you. Yes. Are you guys okay with the concept? Do you guys understand how the concept? So you will in most cases be given this value, right? You have to come up with the calculation and decide. There may be some aji-baji there, but you won't be asked to look into the historical data. They may give you the information in the data and say, okay, that's how it is. Usually in the exam, you won't have to create this tree. It's already there because, so you're probably spending around a minute and 20 seconds on each question. So they don't expect you to draw these tree, this decision tree while you're doing a paper in 1 minute, 20 seconds. Should we try the question, activity 5-2, because that's how it's going to do it. It will help you guys clarify. So let's go to activity 5-2. Sorry. Okay, open page 265. Okay, first of all, what I would like you guys to do is calculate the EMV for vendor A, B, and C. What do you think what it is? So they've done this, you just have to calculate. Okay, what's the answer for the first one, guys? Give me the answer. What is the calculation for the first one?
1,800.
Okay, 1,800. What's the second B?
3 grand.
3 grand. What about C?
200.
1200?
200.
200, yeah.
200.
Yeah, okay. So that's a pretty simple, right? It's already there. And even in the exam, they're saying, this is what it's been plotted, the results have been given, right? Okay. Number one, which analysis techniques was used in the image to determine the most cost-effective choice of an external consultant? Which one?
Decision tree.
Decision tree, that's right, right? Okay.
Simple first one.
Yeah, first one. What is the decision you have to? What is the cost of decision? So vendor A has quoted 8,000, vendor B has quoted 6,000, vendor C has quoted 10,000. If you don't go through this analysis, you will be inclined to pick vendor A, who's basically 8,000. Yeah. Okay. Based on this data, what you have calculated, who would you pick?
Vendor B.
Vendor B. Vendor B. That's the much more
Vendor A.
reliable. Okay. Okay. What is the probability that vendor A will complete the project on time?
Vendor B, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. What is the probability that vendor A will complete the project on time?
40%.
Why is that? Why not 60%?
Well, I'm looking at the statistics saying best case 40%.
40%, yeah. Best case scenario. I was challenging you so that you guys know, because that's what the question will come like. That's exactly what you will probably have to come up with. Okay, what about the next third? What is the probability that vendor B will run over the allocated time for the project? What is the probability vendor B will overrun?
50%.
Does everyone agree with that?
Half.
Marisa, what do you think?
Yep.
Okay, good. What is vendor C's expected monetary value? Stephanie? Yeah, sorry. 200?
Yes, 200.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Your team combines each vendor EMV and cost. You want to choose the vendor bid with the most economic advantage for your organization. Based on this number, which vendor should your team choose?
B.
What about, you sure?
Yes, for me, I will go for vendor B.
Okay. God save us if you are my manager and running my business. Anybody else who's picking B?
Let's talk, Richard.
Anybody else picking B?
Yeah, vendor B.
Okay, yes, guys.
Yeah,
well done.
B.
Well done. And that's pretty much what kind of a question you'll get in an exam as well. But you need to know how to calculate. So people get confused, like Carlo was asking about, oh, I don't understand what the value is from here, right? And that's what it happens. Sometimes people get confused. They try to marry up with the cost of decision, not knowing how to calculate these values. The questions in the exam, I would say about 25, 30 questions could be more. I don't know. I'm just saying a rough guess, are calculation based. And they are very easy. They're very easy to get marks. You know immediately whether you've got it right or wrong, right? So I would really focus on how to calculate these things because it will help you understand the exam, get easy marks. Okay.
So how many questions for him?
Just don't quote me. I'm just taking it roughly. I would say about, if you have 180 questions, I'm guessing probably 45 questions will be calculation based or something. Just rough. I'm just taking rough. Could be less or more. Richard is laughing. Don't quote me, Richard. PMI is going to sue me for this. Marisa, you have a question?
Well, I guess for exam perspective, then I'm just going to take it as it is. But for me, this decision tree analysis, I couldn't apply it in my reality.
You would be surprised. Well, I've never used it in the last 27 years. It's true. There are things that you would not use it, and the reason for that is these are some of the techniques. If you're sitting there, you've got there are other techniques available now, but these are basics. They want you to understand how you can do it. But it is to immediately question, and we tend to do that when you have 3 bids in front of you course, it's a pretty common in our industry, right? Let's get 3 quotes, and whichever the lowest, just pick that one. Have you seen that? This happens very common in industry. Get 3 quotes and we'll pick the lowest one, little realizing maybe the historically that vendor is the worst vendor, but we pick the lowest quote usually, and that's what it's saying. Don't do that. That's not the way to do it.
But that's the thing. We sometimes we don't have the historical data. I mean, if
Yeah, I know.
as
That's
a
what I'm saying.
vendor, they won't tell us.
Yeah. That's what these basically you have to have a historical data from other projects, right? So you if you don't have that, then it's probably not a good way to analyze it. You won't be able to look at it. You have to have sufficient data to make use of this technique. And that's probably the reason that not many organizations use it. Again, this is coming traditionally from the days when we have construction and procurement, manufacturing industry, PMBOK started. So now we have more sophisticated tools.
Yeah. So just a quick one. Yeah. Just take the example in the activity 5-2.
Yeah.
Just trying to get an understanding. So in the vendor A, in the best case scenario, the 6,000 that's actually come out from the historical data. So in the past, vendor
that's
A
right.
managed to give you 6,000 profit.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these. So this is historical. So based on historical data or from other projects, you basically look at it and say, oh, okay, historically this vendor has 40% track record of delivering on time, and 60% track record of late, and when we delivered late we had an impact of $1,000. But when it delivered on time, we had a positive outcome of $6,000 based on historical data. Right? They come up with these figures. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to topic C: evaluate and address internal and external business environment changes. Again, I'm going to come to you guys. I'm going to ask you guys to tell me how to do this. This is all talking about how we do what is the internal business environment. Organization can dramatically impact the scope of the project. Does it make sense or not? Why is that? Help me understand why is that. Why do you think internal business changes can impact the scope of the project? Why is that? Okay, who can tell me? Carlo, do you want to go?
Yeah, the world is changing. Like competition is always changing as well, and you need to evolve.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but let's say you're doing a project, and project sponsor, you have a sponsor who's keen to help your project, and then suddenly sponsor resigns. Okay, sponsor resigns, and now you have a situation with the sponsor who's not interested in it. So changes. It's going to impact the scope of the project. Your project may get canceled. There are a lot of factors, right? Internal business changes might cause need for new deliverables, reprioritization of existing deliverables, elimination of deliverables no longer required. The business need. One thing I keep repeating, and I really want you guys to remember that the projects are the result of the business need. If the business need is not there, the project will stop. Needs to stop. Otherwise, you're delivering something that's not. We remember we talked about benefit realization. If the need is not there, then it's no use, right? Then the projects are also impacted by external business environment, and external business environment, they are called PESTLE, P-E-S-T-L-E. So that's the easiest way to remember PESTLE, P-E-S-T-L-E. Political, economic, social, technical, legal, environmental. Okay. Lot of, especially in the Western world, a lot of projects are impacted by environmental thing, right? Coal, seam gas, you can't do that, you can't do this, it's an environmental impact. You would be surprised, what is the safest form of energy generation? Do you know what is it? Okay, let me ask you guys a question. What is the safest form of energy generation? What is the safest form of energy generation?
Turbines, wind.
Lakesh, okay.
Just guessing.
Wind. Okay, let me put it: safest and cheapest form of energy generation. I think that's better.
Hydro.
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 Okay. What else? Wind. What else? Safest and cheapest. Carlo?
I would go with hydro as well.
Hydro. Anyone else? Richard? No? Kate?
Solar.
Yeah, I think hydro is.
Hydro. Okay. So guys, according to the research, nuclear is the safest and cheapest form of energy generation. Surprised?
Safest, really.
We conducted research.
Research. That's the research. That
Oh,
and
yeah.
in fact, according to the statistics and facts, that is the cheapest form of energy generation. But the perception is it's the because of Chernobyl and whatever this it's Chernobyl, right? It's you know it is the most expensive and dangerous form. In fact,
Right. Yeah.
on the contrary, it's not. On the contrary, it's not. So there's a atomic power plant in Adelaide. Generation's been going on. It's just stuck because of these pestle environments. Knowing very well that it is cheap. It's long lasting. It's safe. But
Fahim, is that safe? Did
Yep.
you say it is the
Yep.
safest? Is
Yep.
it?
yeah, because of the compliance, because a lot of things that they've put in since
In place.
80s,
Mhm.
it has become one of the. Which is when was the last nuclear power leak? Did you guys hear about after Chernobyl? Did you guys hear anything? Sorry.
Fukushima, the
Yeah, but
tsunami in Japan.
that was not a leak at all. Even with the
tsunami in
tsunami, they
Japan.
managed it. Even
Oh,
with
yeah.
tsunami.
Mm.
Yeah, it wasn't a leak. It wasn't even with the natural disaster. That's a very good example. They managed it very successfully. Yes, they had to vacate the place, but that's what you do with any situation like that. But yeah, they managed
Yeah,
it.
but then when you think of long-term effects,
I'm sorry, Kate, your voice is a little bit muffled.
yeah, I just said then when you think of the long-term effects, okay, so the disaster could have happened some generations ago, but many future generations would be affected by that disaster. I mean, it's a topic for discussion. I would say.
That's exactly that's why I brought it in discussion. Is because of this pestle discussion that we have. So projects are impacted by these discussion: environmental, legal, technical, social. That's a social impact to the projects. You're right. We have the data from 1945 atomic bomb drop. That's what happened. That impacts. But yes, we know that. But that has created a risk factor and a fear. So the risk is very high. So people don't. The organized countries are reluctant to do that. And then there's a social and environmental pressure on it. But anyway, so this was besides. I was just trying to tell you how the projects are impacted by the pestle environment. That's how it happens. Okay. Okay. Pretty. What is a change control board, guys? What is a change control board? Please help me. What is a change control board?
A board that regulates the changes, I would say.
Okay.
Approves them. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's a formally chartered group of professionals for reviewing, evaluating, performing, delaying, or rejecting changes to the project, and for recording and communicating such decisions. But that's fine. You're right. But I just wanted to make sure. So you're right. What is it? We talked about change control board. Okay. Configuration management system. I hope I don't have to repeat now again. Backlog reprioritization. What is a backlog? Number one, what is a backlog, guys? Who can tell me? Mariam, what is a backlog? Mariam's not there. Lakesh, what is a backlog, man? Not there. Okay.
Past issues.
No. Oh, no. What is backlog? Backlog. Number one, which methodology are we referring to?
Agile.
Agile. So it can't be past issues, right? Okay. What about you, Stephanie? You want to give it a go? What is a backlog?
Task list.
Sorry?
Task list. The list of tasks that we need to clear.
Minutes? No, no. What about you, Marisa?
Yeah, sort of like along the line with Stephanie. It's things to do.
Yeah, things you. Oh, I didn't hear Stephanie. I thought Stephanie, you said minutes. Apologies. Did you say things to do?
Task.
That's
Task.
that's
Oh,
It's a
sorry.
exactly.
task.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Apologies. My apologies. And that's the list of tasks or requirements, whatever you have for the product. That's a product backlog. That's for sure. And product backlog normally includes the features and user stories. And the features are basically the requirements for the product. Okay. What is reprioritization? So who owns the product backlog? Number one, who is the owner of the product backlog? Who reprioritizes the items in the product backlog?
Product owner.
Product owner. That's right. So product owner is responsible for it, but anybody can add the item in the product backlog. And depending on your business requirement, you can reprioritize the changes in the backlog. You can, so from product backlog, what's in the product backlog? What's the next step? Where does it go? Once you prioritize the item in the product backlog, where those items go? Come on. What's the next step after product backlog?
Doing.
You need to deliver those, right? So items you have done. So what do you do? So you put them in the sprint backlog. So the sprint team can deliver it, right? Okay. Product owner duties, talk about it. Have a read through, quick one, if you want. Remember user stories, we talk about it. Okay. Are we clear on roadmaps? We talked about roadmaps, what the roadmaps are, high level key milestone across over a period of time. Is everybody familiar with that? Okay. If your roadmap changes, you probably need to change your backlog. Yes. We are now, like I said, we are just going through revising all the concept that we have learned in the last 4 weeks. It's just going back to reminding you, these are the requirements to run a business. That's what we are doing at the moment. We're just continuously going back. If there's a term that you think we have not studied, we have not discussed, please let me know immediately. I'll try to explain it. Okay, release planning. Okay. Any questions on release planning? You have to tell me if you guys have any question, if there's something that you want me to explain you in terms of these concepts anymore.
The roadmaps were they just like the plans?
Yeah, the roadmaps are the holistic plan, yeah, over a period of years, right? Normally they represent, so let's say again, okay, I'm gonna pick Samsung now. So you have a Samsung phone, and Samsung phone says, they want to have, in fact, I don't know the Samsung model, so I don't know. So I'll go back to iPhone. So
just pick iPhone. Yeah, that's fine.
let's see. So iPhone 1, 2, 3. So you know how every year they're coming with the new version of the iPhone? That's on their product roadmap. The product is iPhone, right? The roadmap says, or the milestone says, iPhone version 1, 2, 3, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's the product roadmap. Over a period of time, they've already planned what is it, and they know that within that product, what features they need to add. They're going to add and changing the features on a regular basis. So in their product backlog, they're continuously changing based on the customer feedback, right? Did you notice the new iPhone came up with the three cameras? I think there's a 3 lens. I can see 3 lens, right? I don't even know what is it used for, but 3 lens or from 1 lens. So you don't see people holding professional camera like I have one professional camera like this, because people keep going to just using tick, right? So that's the response to the customer feedback. customer feedback says, oh, they want to use it as a phone. It's not a phone at all, right? It's a smartphone. Like iPhone is not a telecommunication device anymore. It's a computer in your pocket, right? In fact, it's more than that. It's your wallet, it's your computer, it's your torch, it's your bank. It's everything is in an iPhone. I don't know about Samsung and Android. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, but that's what it is, right? They must have a product roadmap for that. Okay, that's where it has come from. Governance steering committee. Who is familiar with the steering committee concept? Is everyone familiar with the steering committee concept? Okay. That's pretty much it. Like I said, this whole chapter is nothing going back to your whatever we have learned up till now, and basically saying, oh, that's what it is. Okay. Okay. What I want to do is I want to give you guys a poll. Okay. So it's 8:30. Let's do Q&A. 10 minutes. I am going to start the poll now. I'm just realizing. Okay, guys. I think we'll finish here. We still have I'm just gonna a little bit 2 topics to cover, but again, I can't stress enough. They are again very simple, going back to the topics discussions we have already covered. So, and this one, we talked about the organizational culture style, and it also talks about, the information around functional project, matrix composite. You remember that we talked about that? You guys all remember? Right? And I also would like you guys, I've given you a paper to read about what these are. Yes? Okay. We're going to talk about it here tomorrow. I don't want to discuss this, but anything else that we want to discuss today before I stop the lecture? Okay. Anything, guys? What do we want to discuss? Anything you guys have concern you want to talk about?
Just that function. So you got functional leads. Is there like, maybe we've discussed this and I've just missed it, but so there's a functional lead, but is there any other categories that
The functional lead is referring to basically SMEs. Right?
SMEs,
Subject matter experts of these areas. So there are different wordings to use for it. Basically, people who are expert in their area. Right? They're in their function, so they lead their own function.
And
so that what was transactional?
So transactional leadership is based on the goals. You assign goals to people. Okay, guys, you go and do it. And I'll give you a exact. I thought I gave that definition, but I think if you transactional is based on goals and feedback and manages by exception. Okay, so the exact definition of the transactional is focuses on goals and feedback and manages by exception.
And so for this functional leads, if they're not a functional lead, meaning they're not specializing in an area, do we have a name for, generally speaking, for how we class those people? Like they don't specialize, but they're kind of in multiple areas. Is there a name for that?
No, yeah. No.
Okay.
From my point of view, yeah.
Okay.
It might be, but I wouldn't worry too much about it from exam point of view as well. So.
Okay, so it's not like in a question they would ask something along those lines.
Yeah, it's because it's a generic term. Another thing I really want you guys to not focus, understand the definition, but take the question in the context that is asked, right? You have to apply that. Otherwise, if you're going to focus yourself, I think Marisa mentioned this, right? About earlier about feature. We talked about feature versus requirements, right? You have to take the requirement. So if there's no mention of agile environment or anything, I'm giving you an example, but it's talking about the features, then I would just not, I would take it in the context of the question that's been asked.
Okay.
Don't just make it a hard and fast rule that's only used for agile. Make sure you understand the question before you respond to the answer, respond to the question. Is it okay? I just I'll clarify that because it is important that you guys are, because don't try to preempt the answer based on these terminologies without understanding the question. Right? I keep saying you that question is 50% based on book. The rest 50% is your project management experience. That's how the exam is structured. It's not about reading the, so you read the book, you'll be able to answer good, you understand the book, 75 questions out of, 90 questions out of 180. Well done. What about the remaining 90? That's based on your experience, how you approach the project management, how did you apply the project management skills in your profession. Understand agile, please. I think I mentioned there's an agile guide that also comes with the book. Let me just quickly stop the recording if that's okay. But thank you guys. Thank you very much for today. Tomorrow is the last day of this class. We'll go through the remaining two topics, and then I'll basically look up to you guys to ask question. I'll try to give you some hints about how to take the exam, and we're gonna take it from there. But thank you very much. Really appreciate your time today.